Canada, a country that I have a relationship with, best described by the poem How Proud I Am of Canada. Here is an excerpt. How proud I am of Canada, the country of my birth, described by other nations as the best place on earth. My country is diversified, with many sights to see, from the mountains of the Pacific to the Maritimes by the sea. With the diversity comes the religious aspects. My name is Nikhil Sinka, and I am an atheist, immigrant, and a Canadian. And I am looking to question religion's place in a secular, diverse country that I call home. In this episode, my friend Mustafa will be discussing a few points regarding the religion of Islam.
As an immigrant who moved to Canada for a better life, and also being an atheist, I enjoyed the benefits of secular society. This is the benefit that 44,000 people in Syria applied for in October 2020. My co-host Mustafa, being in the legal profession, has taken up many cases related to immigration and refugees. I initially felt that I had a connection to these people who are coming in as seeking asylum because I was an atheist and I immigrated here. But the harsh reality is that because of Musa's background, he's a lot more versed in this topic. Now, for a brief introduction about Mustafa, he is an ex-Muslim who escaped Pakistan in the face of persecution. He has a special interest in the topic of Islam. Mustafa and I want to know why the conflicts in the world are happening. Are they truly religious, or are they geopolitical conflicts with religion as a front? To discuss this, we are interviewing Dr.Abdul Patel, one of the founders and the current interfaith director of the Canadian Council of Imams. Let us listen to him explain his credentials and how he is special for this topic.
So, Dr. Abdul Patel, tell us about yourself as well as the organization that you work with.
Well, I was just telling him that I came here in 1969 in Canada as a student. My full-time job has been, I studied engineering here. My full-time job has been in engineering, IT, electronic. I left India in 1962.
Mm-hmm.
I went to Barbados, where my father had settled since 1934. So, and my background is Indian, West Indian, and Canadian.
Wow, that's amazing. It's quite a diverse background.
When I came here, there were only about 1,000 Muslims in Toronto.
Okay.
And only 4 or 5 people who were in a position to lead them or act as imam in the prayer and fulfill other Islamic needs. So I was introduced when I arrived with my hosts to the Islamic Foundation, if you know the mosque in Scarborough, which used to be at the Gerrard and Coxwell in those days. Even before that, I came when it was bought. So I've been acting as a voluntary imam for 53 years.
Wow, you've been 53 years.
Yeah, I serve on a number of boards, Muslims and non-Muslims. I was a founder of the Canadian Council of Imam and religious leadership in 1990. I have served as a human rights commissioner for the province of Ontario for 6 years. I serve on the board of governors for Scouts Canada. I was a school trustee for the TDSB in the last term for 2 years. I'm a chaplain with York Regional Police. I've been serving as a consultative advisory capacity with Toronto Police for 33 years now.
Wow.
So many hats I have on my head, and founded a number of organizations, social justice organizations, Muslim Children Aid and Support Service, and SAR Foundation, another one for poverty reduction and homeless people.
Yes.
So I have kind of a broad range of experience in both mainstream community and in the Muslim community, as well as Vice President and past President of Canadian Multi-Faith Federation, which is the oldest multi-faith organization in the country.
Yeah.
I was formerly known as Ontario Multi-Faith Council. I'm also a member of the Interfaith Advisory Committee of Correction Canada for federal prisons.
Oh,
Chaplain at University of Toronto for now over 27 years.
Oh, you have quite the experience, Doctor.
And list will go on with many other services that I have served on hospital boards. I'm a recipient of Governor General Award, Queen's Diamond Jubilee Medal.
All right. And so, Ms. Dr. Patel, can you give us a brief history? You stated the Canadian Council of Imams. What is the brief history of the organization? Could you provide a brief history?
Well, brief history is that we can look at the website, Canadian Council of Imams.com, but I don't know if it still has it. It's to bring imams and provide a platform for imams who serve in the community to come and discuss the issues facing them and find solutions, basically, and to represent Islam when required. Especially after 9/11, my major work has been more building bridges with other faith communities. So interfaith work has been.
All right.
This is what the purpose of this council is, to come together. Our Muslim community, by the way, as you know, is not one community. We are communities.
Yes.
We are from all different cultures, background, ethnic, races, and so on. Just you name it, and just about every country is here in Canada, including Eastern Europe, Southern Europe, Asia, Africa, Australia, New Zealand, Fiji Islands.
Yes.
So we have lots of challenges to dealing with things, but one thing is that we can all pray together in one.
Perfect.
And so this is religious leadership finds some of the challenges that we face in the West, which are not experienced in the East.
Yes.
So those are the main things. We're still struggling with many different things in terms of marriage and divorce and other things. So we constantly research and have conferences and discuss, find ways to help them, to provide answers.
Wow, that's a long list of credentials. This is the reason why we decided to talk to Dr. Abdul, because he's very knowledgeable in this field. Now, let us ask him to define a few terms that we will be using. What is Islam? What is secularism? And what are the various sects in the religion itself?
So next question I have is, according to yourself, what is the definition, if you were to meet a layman or a non-Muslim, what is the definition of Islam and the definition of secularism according to yourself?
Well, first I will answer the Islamic part, that linguistically the word Islam means peace.
Okay.
Ideologically it means a way of life. And religiously it means submission to God. And God I will refer as Allah, which is a unique word. This has neither singular nor plural nor masculine or feminine. There is no plural word for it. So it's a unique word in Arabic that is the creator God.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the secularism? Yes.
As a religion, it's a way of life for its followers according to teachings of Quran and Sunnah. Sunnah is the collection of sayings of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is known as hadith. Now, the secularism is before I answer this question, we need to define what is secularism to you or to others. There are several man-made definitions of secularism. Webster Dictionary defines it as an indifference to or rejection or exclusion of religion and religious considerations. I can think of three other definitions. Atheism as defined by Karl Marx. Emil Durkheim and Max Weber's definition is world moving away from God through functional differentiation, scientific knowledge, and demystification. The third one is separation of church and state or religion from government, not atheism, or elimination of religion from the public discourse. In the 20th century, it has been left to the governments to choose the one that can keep them in power. But like Indian secularism allows freedom of religion.
Yes.
French secularism banning some of the religious practices or symbols. Except for communism, third one is adopted by democratic countries with varying differences, like some wants to keep religion in private domain, while others allow some degree of religious freedom in governance.
Mm-hmm.
When we speak compatibility of Islam and secularism, that is really a misnomer, I would say.
Yes.
Because Islam is a religion to live, not to govern.
Yes.
Nowhere in the Quran or the Sunnah it is specified that Muslims must establish an Islamic state. Rather, it teaches to respect human dignity, human rights, justice, including social justice, and worship based on divine principles, vis-a-vis God's omnipresence. Any ruler wish to govern on the basis of tenets of Islam must guarantee freedom to practice religion or no religion and human rights. We have right now big question now coming is not just religion, but religion and spirituality. They are trying to make differentiate the two. People say they are religious, but they are spiritual, but not religious.
Yes.
And then there is no religion. At University of Toronto, we have a chaplain who is a humanist chaplain, they call.
Right. Yes.
Which is no religion really, but they have their own ways. So they have the counseling, they have their rituals, minus God. So now humanist chaplains are found in jails and other hospitals and other places as well. So this is what how secularism and Islam can be seen and compared. Yeah.
Okay. And do you happen to, are there any values that secularism and Islam specifically contradict?
Well, anything that takes compatibility ceases if it takes the masses away from God.
Right. And are there any similarities?
Well, similarities in respecting the rights of everyone as a citizen.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so my next, you stated that the Islamic ideology and Muslims in general are a diverse community. You stated that.
Yeah.
Now, may I ask what sect or school of thought within Islam do you or your circle particularly practice?
Well, I'm a Sunni Muslim. Mm-hmm. And Sunnis are the majority in the world. Almost 90% of the world are Sunnis.
Yes.
Sunnis allow choice. There are choice of schools of thought that suits the best practice for them.
Okay. Yeah. And any particular amongst the practices, what do you call it? You have Hanbali, Hanafi, Shafi, Maliki. Which one is the tends to be the most preferred school of thought amongst
this? It's not a preferred, but the most because how these schools of thought or Islam spread in different parts of the world, as Muslims spread across the world, whatever school of thought they were following, that happened. Like for India and Pakistan and Indo-Pak subcontinent, the Hanafi school of thought is dominant one.
Yes.
In Indonesia and South Asia, Malaysia, and even in South India, South Indian states, the Shafi'i schools of thought. In East Africa, the Shafi'i schools of thought as well.
Okay.
Whereas Turkey and wherever Turkish Empire went, right from Istanbul all the way to China, all those parts of China that are Muslims, they're all Hanafi schools of thought. And the Balkans as well, Balkan states, formerly Balkans, the Bosnia, Serbia, and Croatia, all those are all Hanafi.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And in Canada specifically, do you find, are there any particular, which school of thought is the majority in Canada specifically?
Well, that based on the more or less nationality and ethnic composition. Like the Indian Pakistani from Indo-Pak subcontinent, It seemed to be the majority across the country.
Yes.
So most of them are Hanafi, although there are mixture as well, Shafi, and there are others. Then a place like Quebec, for example, where there are a lot of French-speaking Muslims come from North Africa, and they are Maliki school of thought.
Okay.
So it all depends on which city or which province you are living in. But half of Canada's Muslims live in the GTA.
Yes.
Yeah, from Hamilton to Oshawa, about 500,000. Yeah.
It's a lot of Muslims, and so you also so I've also wanted to ask. You mentioned the Sunni school of thought, the Shia, as well as the different schools of thought within Islam. Why are there so many different sects and ideologies within Islam?
Okay. There were no sects in time of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. But after his death, the first schism came over political differences as to who should have succeeded the Prophet.
Yes.
And that difference more or less became more pronounced in the reign of the third Caliph, Uthman.
Okay.
And further splits came about over practices of worship and culture, and at time societal warfare.
Yes.
So people nowadays still invent their own schools, I would say.
Okay.
Just like new religions are born. Like a few years ago, I was in a World Parliament of Religion conference in Salt Lake City.
Yes.
Which is, there are like over 10,000 people were there. And I see 3-4 new religions being born.
Wow, really?
Yeah. And said the Messiah that Christians, Jews, and Muslims, they all expect is on the moon now and will soon be arriving on Earth.
Oh, wow.
So there are new churches being established based on their own creed. In Toronto, we have another sect, the Shooters. They said they have their own archbishop.
Oh, wow. That's quite...
So there's Shiism in all religions.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a continue to sort of establish as from the past and again in the future, currently as well.
This is very interesting.
Because see, there are a number of things that people, sometimes some of the, in this case of Muslims, where culture and religion mixed together sometimes doesn't appeal to people, especially to young generation grown up in the West and for Muslim community. I speak specifically of Muslims and also for Hindus and others as well. They can't reason some of the cultural practices as they have disguised themselves as religious practices.
Okay.
In customs.
So with all these different definitions, with these different sects and all the different kinds of people that come to Canada, one thing that they all have in common is that they all appreciate the freedom of speech here. One of the things on authoritarian dictatorship that really is different than what we see in a Western society is the lack of free speech. Whether it's a communist country or a fascist society, or if it's just a religious group, lack of free speech is very common. Let us see if freedom of speech is viable in Islam and how it approaches free speech. Are all these countries that are oppressing its citizens in the Middle East anti-free speech because of religion, or because of their sick mentality of oppression of people for various laws that make them seek asylum in Canada?
So this ends the first section in regards to the diversity of the community, as well as the next section we have is in regards to Islamic ideology itself.
Yeah.
So how does one? Actually, you mentioned that the primary and secondary sources of Islamic law are the Quran.
I haven't mentioned that.
No, the Quran and Sunnah. You mentioned
the Quran and Sunnah, but the secondary. See, there are 4 sources of Islam.
Okay, 4 sources of Islamic law. What are the sources
Islamic law and
of Islamic law?
And that is the primary sources is Quran and the Hadith, the Sunnah.
Mm-hmm.
The secondary sources is Ijma, consensus of scholars, and Qiyas, analogy. Now, the last are used, last two, the secondary sources, are used when answers are not found or explicit in the primary sources.
Okay.
So this is where people make a sort of independent judgment that is also in compliance with Quran and Sunnah in some respect. So the most obvious question, or kind of a hated question in the media, is the Sharia.
Yes.
So what is a Sharia? Sharia is a code of laws that Muslims practice in their daily life. It's not just a penal code. Muslim life is governed by Sharia.
Right.
It covers all aspects of life, such as ritual worship, interpersonal relationship, work and behavioral ethics, commerce, judicial system, and burial. Literally a road that leads to a definite place. That is, the Muslims have to live that life and also keep the faith for the hereafter, that there will be a day of judgment, that they will be answerable.
All right.
So people don't understand what is Sharia, and this
Yes.
is what the sources of Islam are.
And next question I have is, if one wishes to, how does one convert to Islam?
Yeah. There is no ritual, really.
Mm-hmm.
Baptism like in Christianity.
Yes.
That you must immerse in water or so on. Embracing Islam faith requires just belief in one God and accepting the messengership of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And this is done by declaring the creed, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah in Arabic.
Yes.
And English is, there is no one worthy of worship other than Allah, and Muhammad is the messenger. So you have to believe and accept that.
Okay.
That is how one becomes Muslim. And one does not need someone else to officiate for a ceremony.
Okay.
You can do it individually, because this you are between you and God, the relationship. Yeah. There is no intervening or intercessor.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if one wants to convert, for example,
yeah.
What information would you provide them prior to the decision they make to convert?
But first, to present this creed of Islam, that you accept Islam. Then the second thing is about learning the ritual worship. That is the salat 5 times a day.
Yes.
Fasting, the zakat, the charity, 2.5% of your annual savings.
Yes.
If a 1 year has passes by, or on agricultural produce, if you are a farmer, a livestock, and so on, all those are zakatable as well. And then the last item, if you are financially and physically able to undertake the journey of Hajj to Mecca in Saudi Arabia. Those are the 5 principles of Islam. That then, apart from that, the belief is oneness of God, and then the angels. God has angels in his service that are pre-programmed. They cannot do anything wrong. As well as you believe in all the messengers God sent to guide humanity, from Adam to Muhammad.
Mm-hmm.
Over 100,000 of them came.
Yes.
Then you also believe in the life hereafter, and also the day of judgment, that you will be judged for your actions. One day you will be resurrected after death by God when the world comes to an end.
Yes.
And all the divine books that God has revealed to us, that you must believe. The last day that will come, that the world will be destroyed. So those are the basic creed of Islam that one must have to be educated on, and the ritual worship. Then one becomes, that's a way of life. And then you follow that our dietary code.
Yes.
You avoid alcohol, any substance that is abusive or intoxicant.
Yes, yes.
You only you avoid adultery or fornication.
Right.
Yeah, and then you avoid other sinful acts of robbing, cheating, or hurting somebody. Quran is very specific in that, in chapter 5, verse 32, that if you kill one person, it is as if you have killed the whole humanity. If you save one person's life, it is as if you have saved whole humanity.
Indeed, yes. And the next question I have is, when someone to potential converts, would you be willing to share the dark side of Islam as brought up by critics of Islam?
Mm-hmm. Well, the dark side, like every religion goes through a period of a struggle from both outside and from within to this day. All the prophets have suffered in their lives. And in the modern time, right now, some of the Muslims have taken things upon their hand to commit acts of what is terrorism. And that has really, embarrassed and damaged Islam as a religion, which means peace. So innocent killing or any suicide bombing. Suicide is forbidden in Islam.
Yes.
Yeah. So nobody can commit suicide. So all these things have been, right now we are going through this dark period also. In the history of Islam, there have been other periods, like the Mongols' invasion of the Middle East at those early days, as well as other Tartars and so on. So there have been dark periods gone in the history of Islam where Muslims have suffered, been conquered. So this is like common to all faiths that they have gone through this cycle of darkness. But the thing that Islam in all parts of history that we have, religion has survived in spite of all this dark side. Like, for example, communist countries, when communism came, and in Russia, 70 years of communism, Russia had occupied many Muslim lands after the First War. And also what are now independent republics like Azerbaijan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, all those. And even in the Balkan state, very brutal communism was enforced by Tito. So all those things, still Islam survived.
Yes.
In Christianity, same thing. After, even before Islam, that they have gone through different by Visigoths and others, number of other European conquerors try to eliminate Christianity, and it's still there. Same thing with Judaism. Jews have been wandering from country to country, and to this day, still Judaism is very strong.
Mm-hmm.
Smaller population than other two religions, but the dark side, have come into their lives at different times. And right now, Islamophobia is being Muslims have become subjected to here in Canada and USA and around the world.
All right. And now, next question we have is, what happens if you question Islam as a Muslim?
Well, Islam says there is no compulsion in religion, like Ikraha fid-din in the Quran says. People cannot be forced. And if you practice other religion, lakum dinakum waliy, your religion belongs to you and mine. I have mine. So there is nothing that if somebody leaves Islam, cannot be forced to return. Although some of these states may have their own other laws, not necessarily Islamic laws. So people are free to choose religion. People are free to interpret and express the way they feel like to suit their religion. They will be answerable to God, whatever they need, how they interpret. But there is no compulsion or any execution.
All right. And does Islam support free speech?
Yes, as I said, there is no compulsion. The right direction is henceforth distinct from error. He who rejects false deities and believes in Allah has grasped a firm handhold which will never break, as the Quran says. Free speech is allowed to the extent that it does not damage the dignity of fellow human being, nor revile Almighty God or his messengers.
Mm-hmm.
Because just like if somebody revile your family members, you will feel bad. In the same way, if reviling God or messengers is part of the respect and honor in all religion. History has recorded instances where people have challenged the Caliph. Women have challenged the second Caliph Omar for trying to limit the dowry and also for cutting off the child benefit at that time. Mm-hmm. Child benefit instituted by second Caliph Omar long before Canada, US, or any European countries did that. And he said after 2 years when the nursing stopped, that should be stopped. There's no benefit. And women challenge him. So women have challenged in the past, and so free speech is allowed.
And as controversial as this is, what counts as blasphemy in Islam?
Well, blasphemy in Islam, offering insult to God, to the Prophet Muhammad, or to any part of the divine revelation, is a crime in Islamic religious law, fully comparable to blasphemy. In the Christian tradition, blasphemy properly denotes mockery or lèse-majesté, I would say, of God. There is no exact equivalent to blasphemy in the Islamic tradition.
Mm-hmm.
Although the Quranic phrase, word of infidelity, kalimatul kufr, as it is, comes fairly close. In the history of Abrahamic faith, all the prophets had been reviled and insulted God and his message. It also happened with Prophet Muhammad. They did not, but those prophets did not retaliate, rather showed resilience for conveying the divine message. In contrast, Muslim rulers in the later years of history and recent time, over 30 Muslim countries have enacted their own blasphemy laws vis-a-vis the rise in free speech to suit their own needs, more or less, or to suppress minorities in some cases. So in Canada, there is blasphemy laws here too. Not really well sort of publicized.
So how far should we go in enforcing blasphemy law?
I cannot answer that question. That is up to the country,
Okay.
justice system where the laws exist.
And my next question we have is, if someone does not want to be a Muslim anymore, what is the procedure?
So there is no formal procedure.
Mm-hmm.
He or she can free to renounce Islam in his own heart, just renounce his own faith or her faith.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, all right, the next question.
Anything as that happens after that, he or she will have to face the society.
And what ramifications would they face with the community should they decide to leave?
Well, community cannot be a judge to do any harm to the person.
Okay.
Yeah, individual has no justice in their hands. It all depends on the person, how that person can face the community's culture and tribal customs for doing so.
That's all well and good, but there are still many minority groups that seek asylum from their countries due to other factors. They claim that where they came from, they did not the equal rights that Canada provides them. For example, the jizya tax for Christians and Jews. Many people have to pay this protection tax just to live. Another example is the right for women to drive, which was only given recently in Saudi Arabia. Is this just authoritarian regimes with twisted ideologies? Or is this what the religion itself practices?
What is the Islamic opinion of women?
Yes, this is the most commonly talked about because the rights of women in Islam are more than Christianity or Judaism. You could compare. Now, this is a fairly long answer I might give, is that the status of women in Islam is very much misunderstood because of the dress code and the news of oppression in the Muslim countries and societies. One thing you must note that there are no Muslim countries governed by Islamic law as such, complete Islam. They just take portions of it. Islam is the state religion in most of the Middle Eastern countries and North Africa and Malaysia and Indonesia, but they don't apply all the Islamic rules. They just apply part of it. For example, Saudi Arabia did not allow women to drive until just last year.
Yes.
There's nothing in Islam prohibiting women to drive. So these are all different things that people see. The Afghanistan now, it says girls cannot go to school, the Taliban in earlier years that they ruled. There is, in Prophet Muhammad said, acquiring knowledge, and he said knowledge, not just Islamic knowledge, is compulsory on men and women. He used both words, men and women. And he said to seek knowledge, go as far as you can go to even China. China was the farthest country that they knew. So he says getting knowledge for anybody, for that matter. He didn't say that only men can acquire knowledge. No. So this is something that all this is because of the patriarchal society or the history of patriarchal society that we are, the nature of societies in Asia, Africa, Middle East, and even to this day. Canada did not recognize women until 1929 as a person. Do you know that?
Yes.
Yeah, they couldn't seek elected office here in Canada or even go to a medical school or other universities. It was Alberta 5 women that spearheaded the campaign that really made women recognized as a person in 1929. And Alberta has another history of 5 women, 5 Muslim women that helped establish the first Muslim mosque in Edmonton in 1938. They raised the funds to get the historic mosque, masjid in Edmonton, 1930, Al Rashid Mosque, which is now a heritage site. So many countries, they enact their own laws to protect this patriarchy that we have inherited. There is no Islamic state as such today, as I said. While in the eyes of God, both genders are equal as human beings. So their worship is the same. Value of their worship and devotion is ranked the same. She is regarded as a full person, and Canada did not recognize until 1929. In marriage, bride's consent is asked first. And if you are married, then you know if who had the first consent. If she says no marriage can take place. So there is no forced marriage in Islam. She can retain her maiden name after marriage. And Canada really started raising a lot of eyebrows when our former Prime Minister Joe Clark's wife in the late 70s, Maureen McTeer, she retained her maiden name, and everybody wondered that why she is not Mrs. Joe Clark. But Islam 1400 years ago gave this opportunity to women. She can retain her maiden name after marriage. She is not obligated to support a family. Husband has to support. She is not obligated to cook and do the housework. Husband has to provide a servant. And when I say this, when I perform marriage, I said I might need a security guard from banquet hall to get out. Because I said the men would corner me. And some men did come to ask my wife if I cook. My wife said yes, but she won't allow me to cook because I make too much mess. So
wow.
Education is compulsory on both men and women. She can study to the highest level possible. She can inherit and own properties. 1400 years ago, Islam gave this right to women to inherit. She can be a judge, teacher, or a spiritual guide and can seek elected office. As a mother, she enjoys status above the father. So heaven lies at the feet of the mother, Prophet said. In pre-Islamic Arabia, female children were buried alive in infancy. Islam stopped this infanticide. Women are exempt from certain ritual worship, like when they are going through menstrual cycle or postnatal period, and so on. They don't have to pray and fasting and the salat as well during their menstrual cycle and postnatal period, and in pregnancy. They cannot fast. Friday prayer is not obligatory on women, because they have to look after children and so on. So these are some of the, I hope, clarified a misunderstanding about women's rights in Islam compared to what we see in some of these Muslim countries just to oppress women.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
that's that perception.
And now next question we have is, what is Islam's relationship with Christianity and Christians?
Well, Christianity and Judaism, both I would answer, is that we share a common heritage with both Christianity and Judaism.
Okay. Yeah, that answers my next question. So you can
Islam is a continuation of Judaism and Christianity. Muslims are required to accept scriptures of both Judaism and Christianity as divinely revealed books. When Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, decided to immigrate to Medina to escape persecution, he drew up a first governing charter, first constitution, you can say, with Jews and Christians who were also living in Medina, guaranteeing safety and freedom to practice their faith. Similar pacts were also drawn with Christians in Sinai Najran and other places as well. Yeah.
All right. And what is the Islamic opinion of the LGBTQ plus?
Yeah, you really come up with some good questions.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and glad you asked these questions, because no question is trivial, I would say.
Yes.
LGBT community or transgender, or so, they are all seen as human beings with all rights to live, practice their faith, and as responsible citizens. Their sexual practice is considered a sin.
Okay.
I feel lucky that I'm able to ask Dr. Abdul my questions that I want to get answered today, but not many people have that luxury. Until a few weeks ago, neither did I. For many people, the best way to get the information is to go on places like YouTube and Google and search for the answers. If I was to open up a YouTube search regarding this topic, the first person I'd actually get is a gentleman named Mohammed Hijab, who has made some very bold claims regarding this Islamic subject and so on. Here are a few things that he claims and does and says. Let us see if he's really the representation of the religion itself by showing you the full clip and then getting Dr. Abdul's reactions to the claims that he's making.
If you look just at the Quran, you will get the indication that you can have sexual intercourse with a 5-year-old. The reason why it's haram to have sexual intercourse with a 5-year-old is not found in the Quran at all. If you just read the Quran, it is halal, it would be halal to have sexual intercourse with a 5-year-old. In Surah Al-Talaq, chapter 65, verse 4, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us who you can divorce and who you cannot divorce. And then he says, وَاللَّائِ لَمْ يَحِدْنَ وَاللَّائِ لَمْ يَحِدْنَ, and the ones who had never been pubescent before. And by the way, this is very important, yeah? I want all Muslims to be aware of this. The reason why we don't have sexual intercourse with 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds and 7-year-olds or whatever is not because of puberty. Wait a minute, what did you say? It's not because of puberty, because that verse in the Quran actually says lam yahid. They never had puberty before. You can't go around that. The Quran doesn't say anywhere in the Quran that the woman has to be pubescent. I dare you to find one verse in the Quran where it says you're not allowed to marry someone based on harm, or you're not allowed to have sexual intercourse based on harm, or you're not allowed to marry someone based on puberty. So if you're on Quran alone, you're allowed to have sexual intercourse with 5-year-olds. Get me one verse in the Quran which says the woman has to be pubescent. One verse. I want one verse in the Quran from the beginning of the book to the end of the book which says that she has to be pubescent. So okay, so that makes it halal from your perspective. From your perspective, it's halal. You know, in the Quran it says حُرِّمَتْ عَلَيْكُمْ أُمَّهَاتُكُمْ. It says you're not allowed to marry your mum. It says you're not allowed to marry your sister, your auntie. Where does it say you're not allowed to marry a prepubescent? I'm looking for one verse that you can say, you pinpoint it and say this is where it says prepubescent marriage or whatever is not allowed. So if
Quran promotes pedophilia? Is this true? And also, why hasn't anyone sued Mohammed Hijab for slander for making such claims about secularists and atheists? He is privileged to live in a secular state like England and make these claims. Now, let's take the claim of incest. Secular countries have made incest illegal. Does Islam practice pedophilia and incest? Let us ask Dr. Abdul Patel for his opinion on this.
So, based on this video, we'll ask a few questions. So, this famous preacher is Mohammed Hijab, for those who don't know. And he recently stated that pedophilia is permissible just based on the Quran. Now, doctor, is he correct in that assumption?
No, that's his opinion. And there is nothing in there what he is arguing is false.
Mm-hmm.
Quran does not say everything in that. Like it says, for example, ritual prayer, salat. Quran does not say how to pray.
Yes.
But we are praying because the angels taught how to pray. So there are many. He translates that word wrong, and it's his opinion. Salman Rushdie wrote a lot of opinions and things like that.
Yes.
So we cannot really accept that what he is saying. And there are many others who will interpret and say they have said for years, not today, from the time of the Prophet. So Islam prohibits marriage with blood relations, number one.
Mm-hmm.
Sexual relations outside marriage are also forbidden with anyone, adult or children. Cousins are not considered blood relations and therefore is not considered incest.
Okay.
So this answers the question that says whatever the person interprets how he sees, that is his opinion. I don't know him.
Yeah.
And there are many others who challenge Quran as in the past and is still challenging.
Yeah.
But people cannot go by the opinion of the one person.
And for the last question as well, I really need to put the proof for this because we do not want to be we do not want to have defamation. So I will show a picture of again the same person, and Moose will ask the question regarding it.
All right. When are you ready?
Yeah. So just sharing the image here. So, when referring to atheists, Mohammed Hijab clearly states that atheists in or our worldview in atheism allows for incest. So, this is the actual tweet that he made referring to many people with our worldview. Moose will ask the question based off of.
I didn't see that. What was it again?
So, this is a public tweet that
Mohammed Hijab made.
Mohammed Hijab made about us. I'll put it back again, where he told us that our worldview is actually incestuous, promotes incest.
No, but I already answered that that Islam forbids marriage outside outside the marriage relations, and relations are with adult or children is forbidden outside. Children need to be respected. There is no way in the Quran or Hadith saying that yes, children are acceptable. No. If people here in Canada at the moment, pedophilia is a big problem. You say that Christianity allows pedophilia? No. That is still the law of the land here in Canada that pedophilia is a criminal offense. So it is wrong to assume and judge something like that when somebody makes a statement like that.
And there's a last question we have.
Yeah.
Secular societies like Canada, even incest is allowed and punishable, as stated in the criminal code.
Incest is allowed in Canada?
No. It's outlawed. It's outlawed.
Yeah.
Yes, it's punishable, as stated in the criminal code.
Mm-hmm.
There are Islamic countries that practice cousin marriage.
I already answered that question, that cousins are not blood relations.
Mm-hmm.
I answered that question, that Islam forbids marriage among blood relations, direct blood relatives, brother, sister, father, mother.
Just to clarify.
So aunts, all those. But cousins are not blood relations. And genetically, that is medically is proven that way.
Okay. So overall, this was a great discussion. I really got a chance to clarify a lot of the points that I want. Did this convert me to their religion? I don't think so. But many doubts that I had asked were clarified today. I hope the same goes for you, but that doesn't mean you take my word on it. Any ideology can be questioned. I will be as unbiased as I can here for you to be able to research and do your own due diligence on any ideology. Call your local mosque, call the people who practice, sit down and actually have a question and answer with them to find what's most appropriate for you. Now, if you would like to reach out to me, please do subscribe to the Patreon in the description, and also you can shoot me an email at the email listed below. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.